In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world at SunSkyMysteries.com.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm back, believe it or not. My name is Bill Zam. This is, in fact, the Saline Entertainment Television Group and the Michigan League of Fed Up Citizens. You can watch our live stream at ussamichigan.com. Just follow the links. We obviously have taken some time off, and we haven't done a show in a while. Now, the reason why we haven't been on the air is because of the continuing health issues that I have. I have neurocardiogenic syncope, which means that I have what's called the fainting disease. I pass out at the drop of a hat for some reason now. And the problem is that talking makes my throat very sore, my voice very rough, and that in turn makes me, in fact, pass out. But I was at the doctor today, as a matter of fact, today, December 3rd, 2012, and we went over a lot of things, and he has put me on some new medication that is supposed to help alleviate this condition, along with various bits of different types of food, like these right here, a banana. And so, now that I'm on the new medication and on the new diet and everything, I thought it would be appropriate if I started doing the show again. And quite frankly, if you recall, and some of you may remember this, some of you may not, in last month, in the month of November, right there at the beginning of the month, I don't know, maybe the 3rd or the 4th, or could have even been the 5th of November, we had here in our republic and the country for which it stands an election. And that's one of the other reasons why I haven't been on the air, is because of that, because I wanted to see how this new era would start to shake out. And as it turns out, I was totally correct about the results. And I can't explain that right now, but perhaps someday I will. And also, we had Thanksgiving. And it was a very nice Thanksgiving for us here at the Broadcast Center. We had, the turkey and the stuffing and mashed potatoes and all of that kind of stuff. And I started thinking, we don't go to relatives' houses anymore because, well, not a lot of relatives' houses to go to at this point in our lives. But I remember when Thanksgiving was a day that you drove to your relatives' homes. And on the way, every store was closed. Every gas station was closed. It was a special day, and seemingly it's not anymore. And I remember when Thanksgiving Day was when you were thankful for your life and what you worked for. Not anymore. I remember when Christmas was the day that you celebrated the forgiveness of sins and the hope of the future. Not anymore, because now it's a holiday. I remember when New Year's Day, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day was when you celebrated a new beginning and the true hope that the next year would be better than the last. Not anymore. And now we're approaching our 3rd year on the air. And I thought, for some reason, that it would be a good idea to let you, the audience, know exactly why I decided to even do this show, because there was a distinct level of decision making. And, well, I've actually written down what I wanted to talk about. So let's switch over to the screen right over here. Now, I've never talked about this on the air that I can recall. Maybe I mentioned it and maybe I didn't. The reason why I started the show was because of lies. It was because I was lied to all of my life, just as you have been lied to. Yes, you have. You have been lied to. There are some documents, actual physical documents, that show how history has been erased. That's right, the history, actual history itself, has been erased and changed. And that is what we have been lied to about. And before I go on, the way that I discovered that about these lies, about the things that I had been lied to and you have been lied to, is somebody said to me, Bill, you've been lied to. And at that point in my life, I was like, well, I don't know about that. Prove it. And this person showed me the documents and said, look, did you ever know this? No, I didn't. And it was exactly the opposite of what I was taught all of my life and had believed. And once you find that first lie, once you put your finger on that first thing that you have been told that is not true, you go to the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that. And then before you know it, you realize that everything that you have learned and you have been taught is a travesty, and you have to start to relearn everything. Here's a quote from the Smithsonian Institution annual report in 1882 to 1883. It is by John Wesley Powell. I have a PDF of that document. That, of course, I don't have handy. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find it right here. Okay, there we go. Hold on one second. Oh, there it is right there. And we're going to go open with. And actually, we're going to go over here and opened up this program so that you can see it. This is an actual Google book. Let me see here, and we're going to go right here and load it up. This is a book that has actually been scanned by the Google Corporation. Right here, this is a digital copy of a book that was preserved for generations on library shelves before it was scanned by Google. Let's go down here, and you can see all the different pages that they scanned, and the book is called The Annual Report of the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian Institution, showing operations, expenditures, and condition of the institution for the year 1882. You can find this online, and you can read this yourself. This is a quote, a statement by John Wesley Powell. He was, of course, he's not alive now because that was in the 1800s. He was the director of the Bureau of Ethnology at the Smithsonian Institution. And he said this: artifacts found prior to Christopher Columbus's arrival would be considered illegitimate by the Smithsonian. Only the savage Indian culture would be observed. And this right there, that right there, was the beginning of the artificial barrier to science. Only the savage. At this point, this is when science started colluding with government because of commerce and religion was involved at this point. Now, you have to go do your own homework. When I found out about this, I knew at that moment in time, that I had been lied to all of my life. And that's the moment that I started surrounded by idiots. Now, I don't know what the answer is as far as mass education of the public at large. They are, at this time, too fat, dumb, and happy to sit there and munching chips and watching the Idiot Box. But the good news seems to be that half of the country is awake. So, we'll just go ahead and talk to our half of the population. Now, these are the words of George Washington. And it takes history and absolutely everything and turns it on its head. And we don't rely on somebody's opinion, but we use their own words. Now, let me ask you a question. When you were in school, and you were learning, American history, did they actually use the actual real books about these people? Copies of these books, I don't care, handouts, scans from the books, copies. Doesn't matter. Did they actually use books that were written by George Washington or Benjamin Franklin or anybody else? Did they actually use? No, they used textbooks, and that's where the lies start, is in the textbooks. George Washington had a good relationship. Our founders had a good relationship with the Native Americans. Believing anything else is a lie that you have been taught. We have been lied to, and the proof is right there in writing, waiting for you to see and find it. There is no question about it. When they came to America, that would be the Pilgrims, they realized that they could not survive without a close relationship with the Indian people. The greatest story, for example, was the ship full of pilgrims that were blown off course 800 miles away from their destination in Virginia to Massachusetts. They landed on ground, and they're out there in the middle of nowhere. There's no government. There's nobody around. And that's when they make the Mayflower Compact. So they had a government when they land, and there's no Native Americans because there had been a plague that had gone through the area. Now this is where your divine providence comes in. One person shows up. He's an American Indian. This man shows up, and he meets the pilgrims when they land. He comes out, and he says to the pilgrims, "Welcome," in English. What had happened was that he had been captured by the English and taken back to England as a prisoner, and that's a bad thing. He learned English, got his freedom back, and came back, and his people were gone, so he was basically alone. The white settlers are there all of a sudden, and he meets them and says, "Welcome," and he speaks English. That's remarkable. They couldn't believe the providence of that moment. It was extraordinary. At the very moment that they needed help, then all of a sudden there was a person, a Native American right there, and that is how Massachusetts got created. To understand the truth about America, the true relationship that we had with Native Americans that was covered up, it was changed, it was destroyed because it didn't happen to fit the story when they came up with Manifest Destiny. Remember, as I've said before on the show, when the Pilgrims landed, and after that, when they founded the country, they had what they considered, I phrased that wrong, but you'll forgive me for that, they had what was called divine destiny, by the will of God. Later on, that became manifest destiny because the clowns running the government, even back then, decided it would be a real good idea to do things the way the Europeans did it instead of doing it the way that the reason why they came here in the first place was to get away from that. And, of course, they changed right back, and then we had manifest destiny. We'll get into that a little bit in just a second. Now, let's be clear about this. The original settlers, the original founders of the United States had a very different view and relationship with the land and the natives than we were led to believe in school. We were told lies. I think about America the history that has been erased, that our nation and the relationship with the Native Americans happened because it didn't fit the story they wanted to tell, the story of the banksters. And yes, even back then, corporate greed and those in the federal government that were colluders with them. They created Manifest Destiny, which only works when Indians were savages. And it makes me sick to my stomach that they would even do this. They had to be savages because of commerce and government to expand. That's right, there was expansion of government even back then. And let's keep in mind that at that time there were artifacts in the Smithsonian that were destroyed in order to keep the lie in place. You got that? Artifacts that were destroyed in order for them to use their manifest destiny and become a controlling and corrupt government. These were the ancient artifacts that prove otherwise, that we have been led to believe is not the truth. In other words, these artifacts show that what they told us is in fact not true. And remember what I talked about back up here. This, let me see if I can find it here. It's right up here. And that would be John Wesley Powell. He said in the Smithsonian Institution annual report in 1882 and 1883, he said, and I quote, "Artifacts found prior to Christopher Columbus's arrival would be considered illegitimate by the Smithsonian. Only the savage Indian culture would be observed." Right there. Go to Google, download the book. You can download it as a PDF or an ebook or however you want to. Let me find my place. Okay. Let's go down here. Okay. And this is where we were. A great place for Americans to understand the truth about Americans and Native Americans and African Americans is that it all extends from a gentleman by the name of William Penn. He's the person that founded Philadelphia, which was essentially the founding of the United States. That's where the federal government began. The city was founded by William Penn, who wanted a city without walls, and he determined that he would do it by making a constant commitment to justice and ethics with the Native Americans. Got that? Justice and ethics with the Native Americans. There was never an Indian war with William Penn. There's a wonderful, an absolutely wonderful treaty, and you need to find this too, that still exists, that describes the commitment they made, and it says this. This is what it said. "There are good people and bad people among all people. There are good and bad Indians. There are good and bad Christians." That's what we call them in Philadelphia. And he said, we must come together so that we will address these problems that will come, and it will start with respect and communication. And ladies and gentlemen, that is where we need to go. That is where we need to be in this country, in the United States of America. That is where we need to be. There are good Americans and there are bad Americans. There are good parts of America and bad parts of America in our American story. We have got to come together because good people stand together and guard against evil. This is so that we, in fact, can follow William Penn's example and live in a country without walls. The problem is that half of the country has decided that they want a country with walls, with despotism. They want bad people in charge and have decided that, hey, this communism thing might actually work this time around. Now, as thoughts flit through my head, and while we were off the air because of my health problems and everything, I was reading books. And this is a book that I read. It is called Giant's Star, and it is by James P. Hogan. It's from, I think, the early 1990s. And there's a couple of passages in this book that I want to read to you guys. Pardon me while I put on my reading glasses. You know, if it's possible, me wearing reading glasses makes me look even better. Now, let's go into this book right here, Giant Star by James P. Hogan. Now, there's a couple of things in here that I thought were very timely. I was reading them at a time when I was thinking the exact same thing, divine providence, if you will. Here's the this paragraph here. Lynn was thinking about Egyptian pyramids, medieval cathedrals, British dreadnoughts, and late 20th century arms race. This book takes place in the future. And the late 20th century arms race. They were all parts of the same pattern. This is what she wondered. No matter how much more wealth per capita improving technology made possible, always there had been something to soak up the surplus and condemn the ordinary people to a lifetime of labor. No matter how much productivity increased, people never seemed to work less, only differently. So if they didn't reap the fruits of the effort, who did? She was beginning to see a lot of things in ways she hadn't before. And then there's another paragraph in here that I wanted to read to you. And this is truth. 4,500 miles from Houston, Norman Pacey was sitting on a bench by the side of the Serpentine Lake in London's Hyde Park. Strollers in open-necked shirts and summery dresses made the best of the first warm days of the year and added a dash of color to the surrounding greenery, topped by distant frontages of dignified and imposing buildings that had not changed appreciably in 50 years. And that was all they ever wanted, he thought to himself, as he took in the sights and sounds around him. All that people, the world over, had ever wanted was to live their lives, pay their way, and be left alone. So how had the few with different aspirations always been able to command the power to impose themselves and their systems? Which was the greater evil, one fanatic with a cause or 100 men free enough not to care about causes? But caring about freedom enough to defend it made it a cause, and its defenders fanatics. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly how we are being treated right now. People that want to be free and left alone are now considered fanatics. It's wrong, I tell you, it's wrong. But there is something that I wanted to get to. Let's see here. And it is goes along with what I was telling you about the Smithsonian Institution. It is a gentleman that we are going to probably have on the show. We have been talking to him, and he seems up for it. And he puts on a 2-hour presentation. And as you know, here on the show, we have the ability to show PowerPoint slides and presentations and everything for our guests that we have done in the past. And he's probably going to come on the show, and we're going to see if we can do his entire presentation with, of course, questions from the audience and whatnot. We will let you know about that. And my voice is starting to get kind of rough, so I'm going to read to you this article about this gentleman, and the title that I have given this segment is Jim Vieira and the Slimy Bastards. How do you like that title? Well, it's true. They are slimy bastards, and I, of course, am speaking of the idiots that spelled the doom of the United States as it was founded. No, it's not another Obama rant. It's not a bitch fest about the idiots in Washington. It's about the man that started us down the path that we are on. One, Mr. Andrew Jackson, the purveyor of Manifest Destiny. For you see, we were founded under the belief of divine destiny, where the original pilgrims, the original founders, believed that this, the United States, was a special place given to us by the Creator. On 3 November 2012, Jim Vieira gave a wonderful presentation at a TEDx event. Vieira has compiled thousands of accounts of giant skeleton reports from the New York Times, Smithsonian Ethnology Reports, American Antiquarian, Scientific American, as well as Town and Country Histories, to make the case that the history of our past has not only been deliberately covered up, but is vastly different than what we were told. Now you know why I want this guy on the show. Because this Jim Vieira guy, he knows his stuff. He's been researching it for 20 freaking years. Let's go on. Let's read some more about this. With passions in writing, researching ancient stonework, spirituality, and metaphysics, Jim is a stonemason and co-owner of Northwind Stonework in Ashfield, Massachusetts, USA, doing dry masonry in and around the Berkshire Highlands for about 15 years. Jim belongs to the Northeast Antiquities Research Association, a clearinghouse of information regarding mysterious monuments of antiquity. Jim is a regular contributing columnist for the Shelburne Falls and West County Independent and the national publication Ancient American Magazine. In the spirit of ideas worth spreading, TEDx is a program of local self-organized events that bring people together to share a TED-like experience. If you've never been to a TED or a TEDx event, you need to go, because you're going to see some amazing things. Now, this is from this website right here, and we have a link, of course, up at the website to get to this page. It is called Armchair Travel, by one Stephen Hartshorn, and it is about an event that he went to. And here's one of the giant skeletons, folks. There's a photograph of one of the giant skeletons right there. Obviously, an old photograph. And the caption underneath there reads, "Giant skeletons with double rows of teeth have been found all over North America and throughout the world." The article begins by Stephen Hartshorn. I went to a lecture by Jim Vieira, a stonemason from Ashfield, about stone chambers in New England. The notice I saw mentioned a similarity to a stone structure in Ireland, and I was hoping to hear at last about an Atlantic connection in the prehistory of America. I got a lot more than I was bargained for. And repeats what I just said about his research and everything. And we'll go back to the show notes, because here we go. There are accounts from the first settlers describing stone structures that were here when they came. Plus, they all have entrances oriented to the same positions of the sun and moon. When you take this together with the marvels of engineering achieved by the mound builders of North America, it seems clear that someone was here before the tribes that met the first European settlers, because these tribes were not in the habit of moving around 14-foot slabs of granite. Vieira does not profess to know who made these stone chambers, but he adduces a mountain of evidence to show that the current view of North American history is going to be turned on its head, and hopefully fairly soon. Because the stone chambers are only the beginning, there is lots more evidence that is even more astonishing. At this point in his presentation, Vieira asks his audience to bear with him and keep an open mind. There's also this race of giants. And you remember from some of our previous shows, we have had guests that have talked about this race of giants and who they were. And that's where I'm going to finish up tonight. I am going to be contacting Jim again. We are friends on a couple of different websites. And incidentally, speaking of websites, I wanted to let you guys know that we have done a lot of work on, let me see, right here, on our website, the Saline Entertainment Television social networking website that you see right there on your screen. We have changed the layout and everything of it to make it much easier to get to interact with other people of like mind. We have tightened up the security a lot. In fact, let me log in, and we'll wait for the login to progress, and it will send me to my activity page, sort of like Facebook. That's what the activity page is, where you can post what you're thinking. You can, I don't know, you can put videos and photographs and links to other websites and everything. But let's go over here and see how the there has been an attack going on the website. Let's go over here, and right there, we have been under a denial of service attack for the past couple of days because apparently the clowns don't want us spreading the word. Let's see here. Let's see, 303 spammers since 11/17. We have, you can see the entire list of spammers right there. And let me see here. There we go. We are just going to go ahead and move that over there. I don't know how long that's been on there. Obviously, it's not supposed to be there. You can see the entire list of IP addresses and everything that have attempted to log into the site that have been sent away. And that is why when you go to the site, the first article that you will see is a list of the email domains that we will not allow a account from because they are used by spammers. It's real hard to tell whether a person is a spammer or not. Sometimes they are, sometimes they are not. I invite you to go to the website, SalineETV.com, and see if you might want to become a member. It would be great. We'd love to have you there. At any rate, my name is Belzam. That is the show for tonight, and I'm going to go and have one of these so I can keep up with my dietary requirements and think about our election that happened last month. So hopefully we will be able to come back on the air again tomorrow night, and everything will be splendiferous. My name is Belzam. Thank you for showing up, and we are the League. We are the Michigan League of Fed Up Citizens. Have a nice night.